Mobile gaming, it sucks! You and I both know this. One later, and in a desperate attempt to quell my radiation-induced boredom, I decided to see how many Sonic games were playable on Android for some reason. Turns out, in an audience of, oh dear god, I was wrong. You can play Sonic Generations on your Android device. So, once again, let's ask the age-old question. How many more Sonic games are playable on Android? No, I wasn't lying. Sonic Generations, and no, not the puny 3DS version, the full version is playable on Android, so stick around and I'll show you how. If you've already seen my previous video on this topic, I give a middle finger to streaming services. If you consider streaming, then you might as well say that Sonic Prime is a full canon Sonic game. If you consider game streaming services a viable option, then I wouldn't be making this video. Only titles that run natively on the device itself available here. Within the last video, we established that all of these Sonic games are playable on your Android device. We're going to start out with some smaller titles, but then we will ramp up to the big boys later on. Previously I mentioned that the Master System versions of Sonic 1 and 2 are playable through emulation on Android, which they are. However, it's come to my attention that there is a native fan port of these titles on Android. These ports feature widescreen, native controller support, and just a bunch of customization options. It really brings some new life into these crusty, dusty-ass games. Credit to Creative Aria for remaking these games. The links for these remakes, as well as everything else I've listed within this video, will be down in the description down below, just like last time. Now, moving on to the arcade. Sega Sonic the Hedgehog, the debut of store brand Knuckles and Tails. This game is 100% playable through MAME. It runs fantastically. However, the controls are just a little bit of a... Yeah, so the original game controlled with a trackball, so it doesn't really translate all too well to the MAME joystick. Purely for that reason, I would say that it's unplayable, but it technically runs, and it runs fantastically at that. And as for Waku Waku Sonic Patrol and Sonic Popcorn Shop, these games are, unfortunately, not playable through my experience. I'm sure there's a way to play them, but I couldn't, for the life of me, get these games to even show up in the ROMs list. Oh, except Sonic the Fighters. I mean, that game booted, but it definitely gave me a seizure that rivaled Sonic Colors Ultimate. Also, within the previous video I made, somehow I just completely missed the advanced games, which is crazy considering that I adore them. But it should come as no surprise that all the advanced games, including Battle and even Sonic Pinball Party, they are all playable on Android with very little problem. Honestly, there is just an absolute plethora of GBA emulators on Android, but if I had to recommend one, I'd probably recommend MYBOY because it just works. However, interestingly enough, it also came to my attention that there is a native port of Sonic Advance 1 on Android from 2013. It's developed by Sonic Team and it's not available on the Play Store anymore, however you can find the APK for it really easily. Just be warned that it is very choppy and it's also in Japanese, so I can't play it. Speaking of 2D titles, or I guess 2.5D, there are also the Sonic Rival games. Honestly, I think these games are kinda but I did grow up with them. But whatever you think about these games, PPSSPP is the emulator for you if you want to play these games on Android. Given that you have a chipset powerful enough, they run fantastically and they sound great too. Seriously, Race to Win is one of the best songs in this franchise. Oh, and before we carry on, here's a 20-second word from today's sponsor.
Hi, we are the Sefwhiter, and this video is sponsored by us. Do you want access to all Sefwhiter videos, behind the scenes, and even editing tips and tricks? Well, for £2 a month, you can.
This is perfect.
All proceedings will go towards the funding for videos like this. The link is in the description.
Previously in my last video, I mentioned that Sonic Generations was entirely unplayable on Android. And man was I wrong, because... What? Yeah, so Generations is absolutely playable on Android, however, Good luck trying to get it to run at a stable speed. I myself wasn't able to get this to run because I'm just technically incompetent, however this lucky sod on YouTube was. So it's clearly possible I'm just a fucking dumbass. Essentially, this person is emulating Windows and then running the Sonic Generation files using EXAGEAR. EXAGEAR is a Windows emulator for Android.
Okay, so I went on to say that EXAGEAR is entirely unsupported and it's incredibly expensive. However, I realized that you don't even have the option to pay for it anymore, so it's pretty much completely obsolete unless you want to grab the APK for it. But
so as an alternative, you could use Box64. It's essentially the same thing and it's free. It's actually super simple to get up and running. All it takes is downloading these two applications from the GitHub link in the description below and then running this command line. Check up to the card above me, it'll take you to a video that goes into further detail on how to set this up. So, through my failure to get Sonic Generations running on my phone-induced breakdown, I somehow experimented and was able to get Sonic and the Fallen Stars up and running on my Android device at practically full speed. So theoretically, through this cracks open the floodgates for fan games being able to be played on Android, or more specifically, PC-only fan games. Also, I suppose through this method, you probably could get Sonic Schoolhouse up and running on this device, but I have enough self-respect to not try that. I'm gonna be honest, I am running out of games to cover here. There's also the Java games, which is playable through J2ME. So have fun playing Sonic Golf, Sonic Kart, Sonic Unleashed? Oh great, no, actually this one's pretty fun. There's also the Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing duology, but those already have native ports available on Android. So, through my thorough research in both my previous video and this one, I was able to decipher that out of the 101 games spanning across a 31-year-long history, 89 of them are playable on Android. Christ, that's enough talking about Sonic to send a man insane. So, if you enjoyed this video, then remember to like and subscribe. And if you'd like to see me mod a leapfrog so I can play Sonic games, then you can click over here. I think I need to go for a lie down, so that's it from me. Alright, ta-ta for now.